Welcome to our second week of community co-op yoga. It's so fun and so exciting for me because I love working with my community, especially when they're good friends of mine. I'm sure most of you know Jason Lahner. So we both kind of specialize in alignment and biomechanics, but in different ways. And we kind of balance the masculine and feminine in that and all those good things. So this morning, we're going to start with some breath work. A lot of you have been with me these past several weeks, a couple months. Yeah, we do have one more. Thanks, Jason. So you've done this. This is a little different breathing technique than what we usually do in our yoga classes. This is a form of a holotropic breath. And so rather than breathing in and out through the nose, we're going to be breathing in and out through the mouth. And this is supposed to be a moderately paced and kind of forceful breath. So we're trying to really hyper-oxygenate the body, get the energy stirring, which for me also kind of stirs up whatever intention I need to be focusing on. And it not only gets the body warm pretty quickly, but it kind of tunes us into our more primal instincts. And we are going to be getting a little bit crazy today, so that'll help us on our way. We're going to work through 3 rounds of breath. And within each round, we're shooting for about 30 cycles, input and output. If that feels like too many, you can stop whenever you feel ready to stop. If that doesn't feel like quite enough, if you have a pretty intensive pranayama practice, you can go a little longer. But I'll show you what this is going to kind of look like and sound like first. So again, in and out through the mouth. You're going to sip it in like a quick funnel and then and you're kind of just contracting the diaphragm, which is one of our main core stabilizers here. So and you're really trying to fill the lungs and belly. So I like to do the first round sitting up, and I really think about like I'm expanding, trying to get more breath in. And then after that, I prefer to come onto the back because that's the path of least resistance for the breath. So when you're on the back and you have that feedback, it's really easy to send all of the breath here rather than kind of compromising the shape of the spine as you breathe. So we're going to work through the first round together, and then we'll work through second, third round on our own, whether you want to stay upright or come onto the back, okay? So find a nice upright seated position, get nice and relaxed. This will dry your mouth out. So after that 30-ish cycle, you're going to exhale. It's not like ujjayi where you pull the navel in to squeeze that last bit of air out. It's the and then there's a little reserve there. You're going to lick your lips, hold empty as long as you can. Notice what's stirring. And then big inhale through the mouth. You're just going to hold that about 10 seconds and then we'll start over. Okay? First one together. Hold empty, lick your lips. Feel the oxygen in the head start to stir, the energy start to move beneath the skin. Notice the reactions of the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body. When you feel like you can't hold empty any longer, hang on just another second. And then when you do need that intake of air, full inhale through the mouth. Hold for 10 seconds. Work through the next 2 rounds on your own and really use this as an opportunity to work in what's happening in your body, in your mind, in your heart today. If you've ever heard the term getting high on your own supply, you have the opportunity to experience that here. So in this last round, really quicken the pace, the forcefulness of the breath, and go for as many rounds as you can, and then hold empty as long as you possibly can. When you do get to that hold, really start to dig in deep. Tune into what stirs. Lean into your discomfort. There's information there. And once you've completed that final inhale and hold, start to return to a more natural, steady breath, but keeping the intention, the awareness. And you're going to start to pick out some of those pieces of information that stirred during this practice, and use those components to start formulating your intention. Why are you here today? What is that deeper reason, that deeper purpose for your practice? Once you have clarified your intention, I mentioned that this sort of hyperoxygenation, stirring of the energy brings up our more primal instincts, which we get very disconnected from. So I want you to tune into those primal instincts and just start to move intuitively. as if you're waking up from a long winter's hibernation. There's no rhyme or reason, there's no right or wrong, there's no necessary symmetry. Just move, get reacquainted with the physical body. We are going to stay on the back for that. Eventually, we'll be making our way up. And then for the sake of the skills we're working toward today, we're going to start with some movements I would normally be bringing our class down with. But on the back, I want you to bring the right knee into the chest. But the more you pull the right knee in toward the chest, the more you want to kick the left foot out in opposition so that you're not compromising your length. You're kind of reaching out in opposing directions, keeping the shoulders grounded, spine long. And then you're going to slide the right arm inside of the right leg, grabbing either the inner heel or the outside of the foot. Left hand can help ground the top of the left thigh. And you're going to pull the foot down toward the earth, half happy baby. So the knee will start to work outside of the rib cage. Sole of the foot is pointing up toward the ceiling, but you're drawing it down. So we're starting with a passive stretch here. Take a couple more breaths. And then as you continue to pull the foot down, kick into the hand, creating resistance. So all your muscles are going to start to activate. And I want you to start to straighten the knee a little more and then bend the knee just a little bit, starting to get those hamstrings and calf muscles to lengthen under that resistance, just gently. And then release, take a full body stretch, and you'll switch sides, bringing the left knee in toward the chest. And to avoid that sort of exploitation of shortening the spine, popping that right thigh up, as much as you pull one knee in, you're going to kick that opposing foot out. Action, reaction. And then start to work that left arm inside of the leg, grabbing inner heel or outside of the foot, and try to draw the leg down. So first we're looking for that passive depth. We're not really working here. But the difference between passive flexibility and finding that length under tension is that we get more long-lasting range of motion when we're increasing length under active tension. So now kick into the resistance of the hand, but don't just kick and start straightening that leg. Make it really challenging. As you resist, straighten just a little, and then bend, come back to passive, and then straighten just a little. And feel how that not only gives you more strength in the musculature, but you start to get that lasting length. And then when you feel about even here, full body stretch. However you'd like to get there, we'll make our way up to hands and knees.
Sorry, cameras. All right, come onto your hands and knees. Do you guys know what we're doing today? Some do. All right, we're going to be on our hands. So anyway, spread your fingers really wide apart. A lot of this is to get some of the muscles in the wrists going. There is some stretch, but really, especially if this is new to you, much more about the strength element. Press down so much with your fingertips that you can actually suck the center of your palm away from the mat, and you should feel some kind of tightening, some engaging of the underside of your forearms. And then just move around. It can be from wrist to wrist. If you want to make it harder, if you're able to keep the strength, shift forward, taking your shoulders over your fingers a little bit more. But watch out for the hand getting, losing power. That means you've taken it too far. So you're really, elbows straight is ideal. All of this, takes some practice. Once you've done it in that position, turn your hands out. If you can get them to turn all the way back, do that. And to make this easier, bring your knees closer to your hands, harder, further away. Same thing, fingertips are the beginning. They have to stay down as you draw the muscles up the arms. And then really any movement that kind of gets you in there. Make sure your breath is still calm, that this isn't forceful, that it's not making you clench or grip your teeth or anything like that. That calm breath really helps the opening. So like your nervous system calms down, the soft tissue will cooperate a little better. Let's do a couple of these. Now take the back of your hand to the floor, and to engage here, you got to press the fingernails down. So don't lean a lot of weight into this if this is painful. You can have your elbows bent. You got to find how to engage first, and eventually, you can put weight into it. You can even do push-ups in this and and all these advanced things, but don't force that. And by the way, if you do get wrist pain, this is a really good thing to do kind of regularly and incorporate, because this is how often are you doing this in yoga versus how often are you extending the wrist. So this is wrist flex. And so if you kind of balance things out a little bit. Let's do one more, because this I really also think is just game changer. You're trying to keep the long fingers down, rock up onto the ridges of your hands, and you can do one hand at a time, so your thumbs are not, you're kind of floating, and then you're going to lean into it and resist the descent back down, bringing the heels to the hands. And make it hard, because that eccentric lengthening builds a lot of strength, and then rock back up. Do a few of these. And again, if the fingers don't like bending like that, you don't have to force that so much. That's less important. But the down is where you're going to start to fortify the wrist. And like your wrist may have not felt so great right before we started this. By the time you do this, they should feel like ready to go. You've woken up some muscles. You've stretched connective tissue. Good. And then if you need a little shake out, give your hands a shake out. But like your hands should feel like they are working now. I'm giving it back to you.
Why don't you take
pass the baton?
First
Okay. Downward dog. So from there, just lift your knees up, go to down dog. And if you're new to like all this talk of the hands, which I know many of you are not, but press down with your fingers, you got to keep that same sort of strength. So you want more of the effort in the fingertips rather than the weight in the heels of your hands, so you can get more lift through the arm muscles and even into the shoulders. If you can hold that strength, stretch down through the arms, send more weight back into your legs, and feel free to move, to warm things up, to bend a knee and the other. Good idea is to be about hip distance apart with your feet, just so you give more freedom to the movement, to the hips, to the low back. Especially be nice as you're getting going here. And then from there, walk your feet all the way to the front of the mat. However you make it up there, toes straight forward. Again, you can be wider in your stance. Let it be, a fairly mellow forward fold that you can can bow into as you press down, feet to floor, toes to the floor, using your feet just like you used your hands. And then on an inhale, lift your chest long through the spine. Exhale and bow back down. And then bring your hands to your hips. Lift your chest, come all the way up to stand. Nice firm legs, push your feet down, take the arms up and stretch. Let's give a little stretch to the shoulder. Grab your right wrist. So you're going to keep pushing your legs down as you start to bend to the side. And you're driving this deeper more with your legs than with your dropping your upper body. So even as you shift your hips more to the right, push your right foot down, try to lift taller through the ribs and spine. And then stand back up and switch. And ease into it. If your breath stops moving, it's like those are good indications that you're like pushing too far. That the body needs a little time, and more than anything, it needs strength in the beginning of practice. You got to like warm and get the muscles going here. And then back up tall. Take a nice big breath, full stretch to the sky. Exhale, bow forward and touch the floor. And then step your feet back to downward facing dog. So keep your hands active as you go forward to the top of a push-up, to plank pose. And even when you're there, so again, fingertips heavy, push the arms down so you protract your shoulders nice and wide through the upper back, but the neck, turn your head side to side, keep the neck relaxed, keep the shoulders active, and then lift your hips, go back, down dog. Again, inhale, rock forward, plank pose. Push the mat away. Keep the neck relaxed. This time, bend your elbows, lower all the way down to your belly. And then take your arms just out by your sides. Let's do this once. So you're going to lift your arms. You can do T's. Easier is by your body. T's are a little harder. Y's are even harder, the shape you're making with your arms. Lift your hands, lift your chest. But when you lift your hands, you're trying to find those muscles on the back side of your shoulder blade. You can do little pulses. But again, the shoulder blades will move together as you lift higher. And again, you're just trying to find some activation here. Press the legs down, press the hips down. One big breath, see how tall you can lift. Oh, good, and then all the way back to the mat. Whew. Place the hands. Go to downward facing dog.
Take a few breaths here to pedal it out. And taking a little extra time in these sun salutations to drive home some of the skills we'll be working with. So we're going to inhale up onto the toes. Exhale, deep bend in the knees like you're taking a squat. And then I want you to lift your sit bones as high as you can. And notice where the weight is in the hand. So again, Jason mentioned the weight likes to fall into the heel of the hand. And we don't have a heel bone to stabilize in the hand like we do the foot. So start to shift some of the pressure into your knuckle mounds. And you're not only pushing down, but you're pushing forward until the shoulders lift and you lengthen all the way up through the sit bones, giving you some nice tension through the back of the leg. And then let the heels soften a little without dropping your seat. From there, inhale up onto the toes. Exhale, deep bend. This time, look where you're going. Where is your vision? This is where your power has to shift. Push into the hands to come forward and find your feet. From the press of the feet, lift the sit bones to get that tension and let the torso fold in nice and soft. Inhale, slide the hands up to lengthen. We want to keep the hips aligned over the heels, but see if you can gently press your legs away to make the spine a little longer. Broaden the shoulders, lift the core, and then slide the hands right up to the hips from there and stabilize the pelvis as you push your feet down to come up. Inhale, arms up, lift the heart, but notice if the compromise was shortening the back. Pull the ribs and belly in, get a little more length, and then hinge, reach out, fold. Lift the sit bones to get that tension. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, gentle press for more length. Notice the space around neck and shoulders. Exhale, plant the hands, step back to your plank. Even here, press into the knuckle mounds, grip with the finger pads, and then push until you get that broadening of the shoulders, the lift of the core, so the mid-back puffs a little, but then we're going to press the heels back to find the depth without losing the strength in the shoulders and core. Slowly lower. All right, this is one of those places where we compromise the spine and the core to find the back bend. So roll the head of the shoulder back, using the tip of the scapula to lift the heart, but notice how that might have shortened the back and pushed the belly into the earth. Pull the belly away from the earth, and then drag your hands back to lengthen, back bend. We're going to come back down for this one and work the shoulders just a little for where we're going in our balance today. So start by bringing the left hand out to about a 90-degree angle, and you're going to come up on the fingertips like a Spider-Man grip. Push your fingertips down and squeeze them together until you get that palm suction that Jason was talking about. Then notice how the head of the shoulder is dipping. Roll it back. Then you're going to push the shoulder out to the elbow and plug the tip of the scapula into your heart, which is going to lift the chest. Keep that. We're not worried about what's happening on this right side. We want to keep all the work we just did on the left side. See if you can roll and stay. So we don't want this to be happening. We just did all this work to stay here. Can you move and keep it? And then come back. Bring that right hand out. Fingertips down, suction to lift that palm. Roll the head of the shoulder back. Broaden the shoulder out to the elbow. Plug the tip of the scapula in to lift that side of the chest and heart. And then keep all of this structure. Roll over to the right. Nice. Come back to center. And we're going to try to do it both sides. So hands out. Notice how the shoulders dip. Roll the head of the shoulder back. Broaden the shoulder out to the elbow. Scoop the tip of the scapula in to lift the heart. And then pull the core away from the floor as you try to lengthen. Nice. Release. Downward dog. Take a few breaths to move around here, pedal it out. And then you're going to work through one more sun salutation on your own. So that can be really simple and basic at a flow pace, or you can take some extra time to kind of move with intuition, take a little creative freedom when you're ready. Let this be a further investigation of how your body is relating to each of these actions and what the reaction is. That knowledge gives us a lot of power in our practice and off the mat. Nice. We'll all meet back in downward dog, no rush. All right. Once you do make it to that downward dog, all of our power, strength, stability, balance works off of the foundation. So let's start by making that strong. Again, maybe you need to bend the knees, lift the sit bones first, get that high point of the triangle, but then make sure that your hands are spread far enough apart and turned out enough that you can press all 10 knuckle mounds down and forward until you lift up through the elbows, the shoulders, the sit bones. Then keep pressing down and forward and inhale to extend the right leg as an extension of that long, strong line. Nice. Keep this action. Bring the right heel to the right glute and work that right hip in circles. Big, slow, steady circles. So we're really trying to isolate the movement of that ball and socket joint. We're not trying to worry about moving the knee, the ankle. We're trying to get really deep and intentional in that hip. Beautiful. Step the right foot forward, low runner's lunge. First, we're just gonna warm up the legs a little bit here. So allow the pelvis to kind of sink. Sometimes we mistake this for depth, but that pull that you're getting in the front of that left hip here is under a compromising joint position. So now use the press of your feet to lift your hips so high you could lift the hands off, nothing would change because the strength of the legs is supporting you. But we're lifted so high we're kind of out of alignment here too. So push the right knee forward, left heel back to come to your depth, and then squeeze the top of the thighs together to wrap that right hip under. Nice. Then you're going to push the right foot down until it straightens under tension. Once it straightens as much as it's going to straighten, pull your fingertips back, try to lift the chest off of the thigh, and then inhale forward. We'll do that again. Push down to lift the hips, knee out, heel back, squeeze the top of the thighs to pull that hip in, and then push the right foot down, keeping that glute wrapped under, long hamstrings under tension. Pull the fingertips back, lengthen, inhale back to that lunge. Work those little actions again, just so you can feel your way through it in your own body. So that opposing press out of the legs, the wrapping in of the muscles around the pelvis, straightening under active tension. And then next time you inhale to that low runner's lunge, drop the left knee behind the hip. We're going to heel toe the right foot out to the right and roll to the pinky edge of the foot. So from here, you're going to think about hugging the right heel and left knee together until you feel all that stuff around the pelvis pull in and activate again. And then maybe you can lower to one or both forearms. Maybe. This is called psycho pigeon. Take a few breaths here. All right, then you're gonna come back to the sole of the foot so that right leg pulls in toward the side body and walk the hands out to the left. Sometimes that'll make that right hip pop out again, so keep reaching to the left, but squeeze the tip top of the thighs until that hip kind of wraps in, and you get more stretch around the right side body. Beautiful. And then walk it back in. You can be on hands or forearms here. You're going to lift the left heel toward the glute and use the push of the hand or forearm to try to reach back for that foot. As you pull the heel in, push the knee down and reach the sit bone into the heel. And try to rotate that chest a little more open. Beautiful. Release that. Last couple things here. From here, you're going to see if you can maybe reach the right fingertips out, maybe work the shoulder under, maybe reach the left fingertips out. And then can you lift the back knee, push the knee and heel apart, squeeze the top of the thighs. Maybe you can either even get some lift here, airplane, bind. These few breaths are yours to play with. And then unwind, high lizard. You're just going to rock it forward and back. Get those muscles in the back of the legs moving and grooving again. Step back, plank. Work your vinyasa. Really nice, you guys. All right, from your downward dog, start by setting up the strong foundation. Really pushing your knuckles down and forward to get that lift, that high point of the triangle. Then without compromising, inhale, extend the left leg. Heel to glute. Try to work that left hip in big, steady circles without losing this container. Notice how your body wants to move and shift into the path of least resistance or just avoid the movement altogether. Nice. Step the left foot forward, low runner's lunge. First, we're just setting up some of these elements to pay attention to. So let the pelvis sink. This is not great depth, especially when it's passive. So press, get that lift, push the knee and heel out, squeeze the top of thighs to get that left hip to pull in, and then push, pyramid under tension. The front leg may straighten all the way, it may not, but we don't want to lock the knee out because then you just lost all that tension. And tension is good in this context. Inhale forward. Work through that again. So get your lift, your opposing press, your squeeze to get the pelvis aligned, and then straighten. Do that one more time on your own. Yeah. All right, then we're dropping right knee behind the hip. So we're trying to be in a long, low lunge. First, we'll work into that psycho pigeon. So heel toeing the foot out, rolling to the pinky edge of the foot at an angle, but then we don't want to get passive and let the hip sink here. So pull the heel and knee together until you get a lift. And then maybe you lower, but the sit bones don't lower, and nothing in the lower body gets passive. You're using that downward force to draw everything in. Beautiful. Now plant that foot and walk the hands out to the right. Notice if The lower body wants to shift to compromise. Keep the lower body in that forward back direction, squeezing into midline. Only the torso is angling out. Nice. And then we're going to come back in for the bind. So whether you're on palms or forearms, you're going to lift that right heel toward the glute. And again, we're not sinking down. We're pushing to lift, and reaching for that bind. Nice. All right, and then back to palms or forearms. We're going to try to lift that back knee. And not only are you keeping that thigh lifted high, you're still pushing knee forward, heel back. So you're super deep, but it's from a place of stability. And then maybe work that left hand or shoulder under the left leg. If you can do that, maybe you play with reaching the right hand out. Notice if that left hip wants to kind of pop up and turn out to create these actions. That's a compromise. Try to keep it low and deep. Nice. And then as you unwind, we'll just come back to that rocking action. When you're ready, stepping back to vinyasa.
All right, bend your knees. Make your way to the front of your mat. You can walk, jump. And a couple deep breaths there. Anchoring your feet into the ground, drawing your belly up to the spine. If you can let tension out of your neck and shoulders, do that. And moving a little bit, maybe turning the head side to side. Just trying to identify places that there might be a little holding, a little gripping. Good. Awesome. And then come all the way down to sit. Ooh, doing a few of those poses. My legs are warm now. Let's address some of this, a few of these shoulder positions too. So take your hands just to the ground behind you, and you can have your fingers pointing forward, out, or back. It's the same thing that we've been talking about, where the the hands need to be really strong and active. I always say, and when I was allowed to touch people in class before the COVID thing, try to pull your fingers off the mat. And I should not be able to pull the fingers off the mat, even if I tried really hard. That's that kind of because it'll make the muscles in the arms, just everything really fire up. So just starting here, push your shoulders onto your back, and you're trying to be able to stabilize that shoulder blade against the back of your rib cage. It's the same thing that Heather is talking about, whereas the arm bone goes back, that bottom tip of the shoulder blade has to pin in, scoop against the ribs, and you get this lift to your chest. So if you can keep that, that's the important thing. To make it harder, slide your butt to your heels a little bit, lift the butt up. Make sure you're still able to hold and isolate that shoulder position. If you want to make it harder, you can lift the hips up higher. What you want to watch out for is this. Don't go there. Chest up, shoulders really firm against your upper back or rib cage, and then all the way up. And you can lower down, you can work back into it, you can shift from arm to arm, challenging each arm to be able to do this. This should be hard, so I always tell people if your head position, notice if you're doing things where the rest of the head is part of your spine, right? Because it affects your neck. So everything in the spine needs to be working together nicely. Yeah. Good. All right, come on down to sit. Because all the stuff that we're doing little arm balances, the shoulders can get themselves into trouble pretty quickly. So sit like this. I will say Heather was smart to warn you to bring blocks. If you have 2 blocks, have those close by because they will make life a little easier. I'll show you ways to help, but I know Heather's got some cool things, so I may pass this back and forth to see what she wants to teach with this. But basic thing, so take your hands, so the blocks, if you're going to use the blocks, they go right by your side. And you can put them by your side, but you're going to want your hips, your hands right underneath where your shoulders are, not like this. That same kind of being able to, as much as you can, lift your chest. So the help of the blocks, if you have short arms, or it just makes this easier to get a little bit of lift off. So you're going to keep your heels down on the first one. And I will say, if you do, palms can be down like this on blocks. This is pretty darn hard. If you're okay on ridge tops, you could try that. But you're basically going to push down, lift your chest, and then try to slide your butt back on the mat. Can you get up? I know, it's not easy to get up. Watch out. The head will drop a little, but don't like crank your chin down. Try to be tall through the neck. So it's just this much. Down. I know, it's harder than it looks. But yeah, that first key thing is that dragging of your hips back, because that's what's going to help you. And you do it even if you feel like not getting anywhere and you're pushing through the floor and you're trying to shorten your legs. Because trust me, a lot of this stuff is so challenging that it takes a lot of I don't know if I'm doing this right, and then eventually your body starts to wake up some of these deep muscles that are in here. Because there's, you watch gymnasts do some crazy shit. Okay, so then the next thing, I'm going to give just one more, and then I'm going to see what Heather wants to show, because there's so much. We have a place to go, but there's some cool stuff here. So if you can get back, and then maybe you take one of your feet off the floor. Watch out for the quads cramping. Both feet off the floor, butt's got to be way back behind the heels. That is a very hard move. Those L-sit, yeah. That's rectus femoris. That's one of your quads is a hip flexor up to a certain point. Here, let's see what because I know we got to get you to this pinnacle.
The pinnacle.
Maybe have some cool stuff. Kind of fun stuff you can do.
All right. I think we're going to start this next one from kind of a half deer pose. So you're going to bring your left heel in toward your pelvis. And then you're going to plant your right foot. Or, yeah, however you did it is fine. All right. So kind of like we started with doing that half happy baby, we're going to go for that same action. But now that we're in a seated position, this will be the compromise. Okay? So use this hand as a kickstand to give yourself that lift. Give yourself a win here. And then grab either the inner heel or the outside of the foot. And first we're going to pull it back passively. However you can get a good grip there. And then you're going to start to create that resistance. So now the right or whichever leg you're grabbing is active. And you're going to start to kick into that resistance. Don't overdo it. But see if you can get your leg will shake because you're on tension. So we're doing some active lengthening here. And you can bend and straighten. Now, one thing to be aware of, not afraid of, but these are all things I take into consideration as a student and teacher. When we start to do things like this arm, my own body, is exploiting my range of motion because I couldn't lay on the back and just kick my head up to my face like that. So I'm using my own body to exploit that. And whenever we're doing that, we want to be really mindful and careful. So for one thing, we want some rotation here. We want the sit bone to kind of turn up as we start to straighten. So think about that, and I like to do what's called a backpack stretch. So kind of pull it back, lift it up, kick it out, and just kind of play with that. Pull it back, lift it up, kick it out. Like you're putting your backpack on. All right, and then you're going to try to get that to land, and this arm is going to become your kickstand. Anywhere at or above the elbow is just fine. Okay? Straighten this leg out now. Plant your hands, and we're going to do exactly what Jason did a minute ago. So first, we're already in this round spine position, right? That's okay. We can use our press to broaden the shoulders and start to pull the core in, but then we need to lift the heart and get that push-pull. Maybe you can even kind of rock there a little bit. Same thing. Shake it out. All right, and then we're going to do all that other side. So if you pull that heel into the pelvis, it gives you more contact surface to kind of get yourself upright. First, we're just going to start with that kind of half archer, happy baby, whatever, pull. Really try to use, so this hand is my force to get that lift of the heart, that scoop of the scapula. And then create your resistance and start to play with straightening under that tension. And then whether you want to keep the foot pulled in or straighten it, you're going to play with that sort of backpack stretch where you're pulling back, up toward the shoulder, kicking out. And again, just kind of thinking about as you pull back, we're trying to get the sit bone to rotate so that we're not just forcing the leg back. That's going to be really bad on the hip if you do that repetitively. And then play with swooping that somewhere over the elbow, arm, shoulder. Plant the hands. We're going to be a little round here. That's okay. Make it purposeful. So push to broaden the shoulders, get the core to start to lift, and then lift the heart and pull back. Maybe do that little swing. Think about where the weight is in the hands. How are your wrists feeling?
It's looking good. I know this is the easiest yoga poses. But, all right, so come back to the first. Let's actually just repeat, and I'll give you, because it takes a few tries. I think this is, you shouldn't be able to get this if this is your first time. You know, like these things should be challenging, and I think a lot of the value in this is like it should be kind of, can be hard, yeah. So right.
Throw in real quick too, if you have blocks, like anytime you can elevate the earth and give yourself more space,
Yeah.
way more accessible.
Way more accessible. You need like a mountain of blocks potentially, but no, it is helpful. Like you get between two chairs. It's cool. So anyway, put the right leg back in that backpack that Heather was helping you work into. And then place your hands on the floor. So another element that's really important is if your legs are relaxed, they feel like dead weight, and you have even a harder time accessing core muscles. So spread your toes, like make your foot like awake, like, you know, like as active as if you were clawing with your hands. And then latch that leg down against your arm, trying to pull down and even squeeze in. So this leg, like if someone tried to pull it off you, you're yanking it back in. Same idea in that straight leg. Toes back, quads strong. And then all the same stuff. Can you keep all that squeeze in your leg? Lift your chest tall, push the mat away. And then you might get to here. But again, like really hug those legs in. Good. All right, come on down. Second side. Quad, shake the verge of cramp out. Left leg in. It's a lot to think about. Yoga is fun because there's so many moving parts, and it's easy to get overwhelmed, and you kind of go like, that's where you stop today. A little practice. So again, toes, trying to squeeze the leg against your body, fire up your toes here, and think strength there, big tall chest, slide your hips back to get off the mat. If you get further, try to take your toes off the mat. All right, one more. Come on down, switch back to the first side. You guys remember the Thigh Master? Am I dating myself? Right leg up. So when I was a kid, it was Suzanne Summers sold this product. It's like all the nonsense exercise tools we have today. Anyway, so if you didn't see the Thigh Master, this gripping together with your legs. So now all we're going to add from here, same stuff. Pull in with your toes, lift your chest, see if you can slide your hips back. If you can get that, take your straight leg foot, cross the ankle, and then Thigh Master, like squeeze your legs together. All right, down. Switch. Everybody forgets the Thigh Master when we go to the full pose. You go like, and then your legs are falling apart. The more you can learn how to hug, that will be fantastic. It'd be funny to get your hands on a Thigh Master for this training. All right, flex the feet, pull the hips back, big tall chest, straight ankle over the top of the bent ankle. And then that squeeze in. It should make your core, should make everything more powerful. Cool. And then sit down. Let's give it back to you.
All right. How are we feeling? You guys look pretty legit out there. All right. So we've done all of the components many times. We've even done some of the momentum weight shifting, so we're just going to kind of put the pieces together. Show you what that looks like first. So same thing, grab that foot, backpack, back, up, plant the hand, push to get your lift, your pull back, cross, squeeze, and then there's that little momentum shift where the feet kick out, and we don't want this shoulder to drop. We have to keep it lifted like we're practicing in that shoulder stuff, right? So once you get that foot connection, squeeze the thighs, push, broad shoulders. Okay, let's try it. Don't be too excited. All right, whichever leg's your favorite, let's start there, okay? Backpack stretch. Find that kickstand. Use the push to broaden, protract the shoulder blades, lift the core, but then heart, push to lift your booty, cross the ankle, squeeze ankles and thighs, and then keep looking forward, elbows out, shoulders out, kick out, kiss the ground, and come back up. Nice job, you guys. Shake it all out. All right. So now that you kind of know what you're going for, take a little more time to work through it on your not so favorite side. Trying to get that sit bone rotation rather than pushing, and then force to lift. A little sweep of momentum without dipping the shoulders. Broad shoulders, broad elbows, push into the knuckles, grab with the fingertips. So good. Yes. Awesome, you guys. All right. When I really overwork my wrists, my favorite release is a simple one. Just push the back of your hands together as hard as you can, and then kind of drag your elbows down as you push. Come back to the breath. Close the eyes, deep breaths. And then shake it out, work your way onto the back.
Once you're on your back, just take a few breaths and let your body settle. So get heavier into the floor. And then bring your right knee into your chest, similar to what we did earlier. This time, interlace your hands on the back side of your leg. So yeah, where your hamstring or thigh is. And then start pressing the leg forward against your hands. Keep that tension, the leg fighting against your hands, essentially. Straighten the heel, take that up towards the sky. And do it in both legs. Try to get both heels to be a little longer. And it's this kind of game between keeping the tension that in your hands of the leg pressing away from you as you add more length. We're winding down, so your breath, let it be extra calm, let the nervous system relax. You don't need to be working, as in 100% as you do on arm balances. And then hold the leg with your right hand, open it out to the right side. And keep your left hip, left butt heavy on the floor, like that's the anchor. Your left hand, you can place it on your thigh or your leg to kind of help remind it of that. Because as you open the leg out to the right, you're also drawing the foot closer towards your head or your right ear, you could imagine. Give some stretch from the hips through the bones of the legs, making the heels extend out a little bit further. Good. And the chest stays lifted as you take a breath. Bring the right leg back up. Nice. And then switch hands. Take the leg across your body into a twist and let yourself roll all the way onto the outer left hip. So really turn. Your right shoulder may pop up. That's okay. But get your hips settled. So you're on that outer left hip. And then actually press down with the bottom leg into the floor so much that you might actually feel your waistline want to lift off the mat a little bit. And then from there, breathe into the chest. Then see if you can keep that lifted chest, lifted waist even, right shoulder back towards the floor. Just, breathe and let the body settle. You're giving some length. You're giving some space. Good. Nice. And then on an inhale, come all the way back up to center. Release your leg to the floor and make sure you are nice and centered on the mat. It's good to even just take a moment and pause again. Notice what happens after running through that on one side of the body. It's interesting. It's more than physical. Your system gets tapped into in a bunch of kind of strange ways. Bring your left knee in. And then same thing. Hold the back side of the leg. Start pushing the leg away from you. And knee kind of directly over your hip is a good place to be. You don't need to pull the leg in much more than that, at least for most people. And then take your heel up towards the sky. Keep the tension in your hands. Feel what that feels like. Manage the level of intensity that you're choosing to work with this. A little shaking in the leg is okay, but the whole, full body tension, too much. Make the eyelids soft. Keep the breath really smooth. Nice. And then open the left leg to the left, open it out. Keeping your right hip heavy. Yeah. And let your breath help remind your body position what it means to be really full, really open. Good posture. Yeah. Awesome. And then take the leg back up. Switch hands, take the leg across your body. And then turn, rock all the way onto the outer edge of the right hip. So your right foot, you should be able to put the edge of the foot, like the outer heel and pinky toe side of the foot, down on the mat. At least. And then press down into the ground with that leg just to help stabilize your pelvis and lower back. Maybe the waistline lifts off the mat a little, your chest opens up. Keep that as a boundary that you're trying to hold as you work to take the left shoulder down. Part of that might just be like seeing if you can hold the alignment, the work in one spot and settle and soften in another. Should feel good. I'm not going to lie, the arm balances probably are not feel-good poses. They're fun, but this should feel good. This should be you're almost forgetting the hard work of the arm balance. Awesome. All right, and then come back up to center, bring your knees into your chest. Give your legs a little hug. Give yourself a little hug. Whatever feels good. You can rock a little bit on the back. And there's parts of this that's taking care of the body, but you're also acknowledging the great work you did. And that's when Shavasana becomes so sweet, is when you've worked. I always like to say, if you start class with Shavasana, it's more like a nap. The Shavasana works especially well at the end of the physicality of asana practice. So whatever last pose you want to do, make your way towards Shavasana when you're ready. Stretching your legs out, your arms out. So you're taking still a very mindful position, still a really carefully place yourself on the mat. But once you're down there, once you're settled, let go, be still. Can feel nice to work to wiggle your shoulder blades a little more under your back so you help to extend the spine, lengthen the spine, get that little bit of lift through your chest. So the head, the shoulders, the hips are all heavy. And then relax. Let yourself rest and bathe in all the great work you've done this morning.
Just be in your body, feeling everything a little deeper. As your awareness starts to re-expand outward, allow the breath to expand with it, filling each and every corner of the body with breath. When it feels intuitive, start to bring back subtle, organic movements. Perhaps starting by running the thumb over the fingertips or wiggling the fingers and toes. Taking your time to come back with intention. Eventually, let these movements guide you back to an upright seated position where we'll meet with eyes closed, hands at heart center. Take just a moment to reconnect with the intention you set for this practice. I'd like to seal our practice with one devotional Om. If you'd like to join in, take a slow and steady inhale to prepare. Om. We see you, we bow to you, and we wish you the highest and best in all things. Namaste. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Jason.
This is fun.
My dear friend. When do you teach here?
I'm here Tuesday night, 6 p.m. This is really a treat.
Yeah.
I'm glad you roped me into doing this. I'm glad you're putting these together. This is a fun Friday morning. Thanks for coming, everyone.
It's pretty great. So, a little bit of a different mix-up every time. Some of you were here last week for yoga and CBD. Next week, it's going to be yoga and